previous video, engine builder Ken Troutman of KT Engine Development completed the installation of the 426 Hemi's camshaft and rotating assembly, and now he's ready to move on to the valve train. The stock Hemi heads will be going back on. Originally, these heads had O-ring grooves to help cylinder sealing, but gasket technology has improved greatly since the 60s, and the O-rings are no longer necessary. These particular heads have already been decked 50 thousandths of an inch to get rid of the grooves. New stainless steel valves reproduce the original 2 1/4 inch diameter on the intakes and 1 9/40 inch for the exhaust. Unless you're using exotic titanium, Hemi valves are pretty heavy. To help keep them under control, we're using a set of nested valve springs from Comp Cams that rate out at 120 pounds of pressure on the seat and 340 at full valve lift. After getting rid of the O-ring grooves in the heads, Troutman didn't want to take any chances with the blown head gasket when this engine is under full load, so he chose multi-layer steel gaskets from Cometic to do the job. But unlike most typical small blocks, you can't simply drop on a set of 426 Hemi heads and then bolt them up. These heads utilize a unique system that requires you to first thread studs into specific holes on the underside of the head before you can set it onto the block. The reason why is because these studs are directly underneath the intake ports, so they thread from the underside to keep from interrupting the flow of the incoming air-fuel charge. To make sure the bolt holes are sealed up, liquid thread sealer is necessary on each of the 4 studs for each head. Once the studs are in place, Troutman sets the heads on the block. The rest of the fasteners are pretty conventional, but the underside studs still require a bit of special attention. As you can see, it's practically impossible to install the nuts with a socket from the underside of the head. They're simply too close to the walls of the lifter valley. To make it all work, Troutman uses a crowfoot attachment on his torque wrench. When doing this, make sure to use the shortest extension possible, as the extra leverage created by the crow's foot can affect the reading on your torque wrench. With the big Hemi head cinched down tight, Troutman can turn his attention to the valve train. First to go in are the solid flat tappet lifters. The cam has already been coated, but Troutman makes sure to coat the lifter faces as well as the sides with royal purple assembly lube as well. Finally, Troutman is ready to bolt up the stock style shaft mount rocker system. Here, he only has 2 push rods in place so he can check the valve lash before going any further. The rocker setup itself is stock vintage Hemi with 1.57:1 ratio rocker arms for both the intake and exhaust valves. Notice the slotted lash adjusters with hex lock nuts on the push rod end of each rocker. These rockers are definitely old school. The castings utilize pads instead of modern roller tips, but they're machined on a radius to make the action on the valve stem tip just a little bit smoother. On Hemis like this, oil isn't fed to the valve train through the push rods. Instead, it's routed through the rocker stands, into the hollow rocker shafts, and then into the rocker fulcrum for lubrication. Once the valve train installation is complete, Troutman spins the engine over to button up the bottom end. The oiling system uses a separate windage tray to help reduce parasitic horsepower losses. A cork gasket goes on either side of the stamped tray, and then a high-capacity Milodon oil pan drops in place. This Milodon pan is designed with a deep sump to keep oil away from the crank, and it also fits the Cuda chassis without any interference issues. Plus, you've got to admit that satin gold finish just looks cool. In the next video, we'll finish up with the intake manifold, dual 4-barrel carbs, and ignition, and then take a trip to the dyno.